Hey, this is Terry Bean. Today on Business Growth Time, we're going to talk about the two events that Janet E. Johnson and I both attended and presented at this week. But first, allow me to introduce to you my co-host, my podcasting partner, and my friend from way back in the high school years, Janet E. Johnson. Where today, the E has to stand for events. Yeah, look at you. Good job. I almost snuck Elevate in there, but I was
when you just said events, I was like, he's got to say events.
He's got to say events. Well, now I'm predictable, and I don't like that. I don't like that a bit. How are you? How was your event?
Events are awesome. You know, there's purposes in events, and I think people have different purposes and reasons to go to events. But I think, it helps build your business. It helps build your peers, connections, that kind of thing. And you learn so much from events. I think people need to attend events. My suggestion would be, maybe once per quarter, something like that,
Yeah.
3-4 times a year. Depends on size and that kind of thing. Obviously, smaller events would be a little bit different. Yours was pretty local.
Totally local.
Mine was local rural.
Local rural. Right. You were like in Wilmer, Minnesota. So,
dude, who's even heard of it? I mean, they're like, where are you from? Farmington? They're like, where is that?
Right. Yeah. You're in the big city of Farmington compared to Wilmer. For those of you that don't know, Wilmer's on the west side of Minnesota and kind of not too far.
They got a casino. They got they have Jackpot Junction, I think is what it's called.
Jackpot Junction. You get your gamble on. So what was your event about? What was the crux? What was the name of it? How many years has it been in existence? Tell us a little bit about the background.
All right. It's called Social Media Rockstar event. It's been around for 4 years. And the company that puts it on, it's Sarah. Sarah is just awesome. Let me see if we have all their information so that I can give the proper kudos. So they do the social media breakfast groups. And I know she runs, her name is Sarah Coughlin. I hope I pronounced that right. And she runs a company that does websites in the Redwood area. And let's see what else about them. So 4 years, she puts on a great event and she brings in people from around the country, not just local. And she got some pretty big people, pretty big speakers that actually speak at, social media marketing world and those kind of places.
That's very, very cool. That's very cool. So how did she pick you? I mean, aside from the fact that you're obviously a social media rock star.
I spoke last year and I did a breakout session and not sure, I think we don't know exactly why they chose who they chose. We don't know. I mean, obviously there's probably part of it is that, I spread the word pretty good. We have this podcast, I'm on social all the time. And so they picked 4 people that had spoke last year or been part of the breakout. And that's how they did it.
Very, very cool. Mm-hmm. And you were there last year, and I remember you being there last year.
You were there last year.
I was there last year. That's a good point. That was back in the Blab days. Blab. For our homies.
Moment of silence for Blab.
That's right. Mike O'Neill was our pal. Mike O'Neill.
There went my speaking career.
Right. Yeah, because you were like Little Miss Live Video Queen for like.
All of a sudden, it's all people wanted to hear about, and I embraced it. But then I kind of my whole direction changed. But that could be a whole nother podcast about how you change direction with your business. There you go.
And then we'll be called Janet E. Johnson, and the E will stand for Embrace Change. Dramatic foreshadowing, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it first. One day, you'll hear it again. I don't know if that's true.
Good.
I don't know. So that is very cool, social media. And we'll get into some of the tips and tricks and some of the big ideas and thoughts that you learned and some of the other speakers. our event was a first-time ever event. It was called Elevate Now. We did it here in Troy, Michigan at a place called Automation Alley, which is one of the main economic development centers here in the Detroit area. It was kind of small. It was 60-ish people, but everybody said that it was fantastic. Our brand promise for this was no selling from stage, no enrolling you in programs, no anything other than really sharp business professionals giving their best advice to help you grow your business or elevate now. So it was all about immediately actionable items that you could walk out and implement the next day.
Yes.
And it was really well done, because it's one thing to say all of that. It's another thing to actually deliver on it, especially when, you told the speakers 4 or 5 times that that's what we're doing, but you never know what people are going to actually do when they get up, right?
Yep.
All did it, and they all added a ton of value, and it was so cool. So we'll talk a little bit about the individual speakers.
Cool. And you spoke, and you were, well, there you go. How did you get on stage? Oh, wait, you were in charge. No, I'm just kidding.
I knew the guy that was putting the show on. What can I tell you? Not only did I speak, I got to close the event. And based on the conversation you and I just had, when I looked at the video, when you asked how long I spoke, I took way too much time.
Oh, wow. Well, you can entertain, so that's good.
I may not allow myself to speak again next
time. You might not be invited again.
That's right. I'll kick my own ass. Thank you very much. It was weird. I thought I was like 45 minutes, an hour. Oops.
Yeah. Well, if you're not, once you're there, it's kind of like, you don't know.
Oh, the
sometimes
fans loved it. I'll tell you.
Exactly.
They loved it. And don't believe me? Just ask me. I'll tell you again. So how many speakers were at the social media Rockstar event?
I have the panel. They did a really good job.
Glossy.
I know. And look at this. I got a big
Holy
picture.
Fancy. Look at you.
I know. I should have taken a picture of that on my
You should have taken a picture of that picture. Now, here's the deal. This is a podcast. Most of these people will be listening to it.
Exactly.
So she's showing a very nice, probably 8 to 10 page brochure, and the speaker pictures were, almost like 5 by 7 size.
The keynotes were smaller, which is interesting. The panelists got the bigger pictures.
That is true. But did you have that full bio? Because you gotta combine a little bit of words, right?
Oh, no, it doesn't say anything about us.
Right. So
you point that out. It says panel discussion group and my @sign. So I better start doing Twitter.
You better tweet, girl.
That's where they're going to find me.
That's right. This panel's really pretty, but we don't want to write anything about them. Keynotes, we'll give them smaller, ugly keynote address. We'll at least know who they are.
That's great. That's great. Well, they had to talk about, what was their information. So it looks like there were 4, 8, 12.
12 speakers plus the panel?
Yep.
And so how long was each talk?
Well, the keynotes, there were only 3.
Okay.
So, and then there were 3 breakout sessions.
Ah, got it. So it wasn't necessarily a bio that they were showing in the program as much as it was the actual content that people could expect, so they could choose their adventure.
Exactly.
And they were congruent, so, hey, you could go to this breakout session or you could go to this breakout session.
You had to choose. Yeah, you had to choose. But, I got value out of the ones I chose, and I really liked the ones I chose.
So which ones did you choose? And more importantly, which ones did you blow off?
Well, really, that's an interesting question. That's actually a very interesting question. Well, you know what? I blew off. This is how to answer it easily. I blew off anything that said beginner.
Oh, smart. Yeah, right. That's good reason.
I tried to go for more the advanced or intermediate. So my favorite one was Dennis Yu. And if people are listening, he is a very familiar name in the industry.
It's YU. Is that accurate, Dennis?
You got it. Yes, yes. Okay. He's from Minneapolis, but he's traveling so incredibly much that he's never here. But he did Facebook Ads Masterclass Tips for the Pros. Level was advanced.
Oh, okay.
So I went to that one. And then I was fortunate enough, one of the things that you get out of events is connecting with people too. And I was fortunate enough afterwards to be able to hang out with them for at least close to an hour and just drill them with questions. And, that was what was even more neat about the event, is just being able to connect and spend time after the event or, before the event.
I heard that in a parallel universe, Dennis Yu is doing a podcast right now talking about how fortunate he was to be able to spend time with you at his event. That's really the world I live in. So that's very, very cool.
There you go.
We should have him on the show so he can tell you how awesome you are.
We definitely could. A lot of these people, not one has been on the show.
Okay.
Yeah. Well. So, and there, the keynote that opened was, he has a book called Get Scrappy.
Okay. I like the name.
They gave the book away, Smarter Digital Marketing for Businesses Big and Small. It's Nick Westergaard. And I had heard him on the social media marketing podcast by Social Media Examiner. Okay. So I'd already heard of him and heard of the book, but now I have the book in my hands.
You too, and just showed it. So there's definitive proof. Like a picture or it didn't happen kind of deal. We have video.
Yes.
It happened.
Yes, exactly. So Nick was good. He definitely talked about the one key point. I'm just going to give you one key point so that we can make this quick.
Yeah.
Was 70% of people online still prefer email over social media. 70%.
In terms of what? Like in terms of how they communicate and how they respond?
Mm-hmm. Communication purposes. Okay. Yep. And 2 times the amount of emails are out there than Facebook users. So that was kind of a cool little, so all about email, a lot about email.
It's interesting because I remember 7 years ago doing a TED talk at TEDx Detroit and saying how many people are thinking email's dead. And out of the 300 people, and I don't say dead, I said dying. Out of the 300 people, at least 120 of them raised their hand. Right. And that was 2009 because social media had taken such a fast hold. And yet here it is, 70%.
Yeah. But the key is, and he compared it to Facebook, but I'd like to say Facebook is the driver of building that email list. And you can retarget your email list through Facebook ads. So that's why there's still so much power in, it's not about just sending an email now with when you have an email list. There's more to it.
That makes good sense. Well, and I like that. So that's a really good tip and takeaway. We didn't have any really cool glossy handouts and programs. So I can't show you any pictures of the people that were there. Hey, man, we were like low budget, evidently. I didn't realize that these people were so fancy.
They were? Oh, yeah, we even got, wait, where is it? Oh, shoot.
You didn't get gifts and takeaways.
Oh, yeah, look at this cool little thing.
What is the little lavalier mic? No, it's not even a lavalier mic.
No, you can set it right down in front of you and it plugs into your phone for Facebook Lives. It's like a baby microphone.
It's like
Look at it next to the sizing of my... It's like a little baby mic. We got a whole gift bag. Oh, yeah.
I have so many penis jokes going right now in my head that I'm just not willing to share right now. But I almost wish you all could not listen to this and find the video and then click into about, I don't know, minute 15 or so just for the visual there. So I'm keeping it clean. It's a, PG rated show. Poor Janet. Poor Janet. You should have known that was coming before you broke that out. What do you expect? Not in a good way. All right. So,
but Facebook Lives are hot, and to have an external mic is pretty cool.
Facebook Lives are hot. In fact, I wonder what the usage between Facebook Live and Periscope is now, because I had a slide that had the Facebook logo and the Periscope logo in the ring, duking it out. But I don't really care what's going on. If you're in business today, video is where you need to get to, right? Because 3 years from now, you're out of business if you haven't started doing it. We learned that from Vincenzo when he was on the show the other day, when he was talking about his visit to Facebook, where they said 90% of your Facebook feed will be video by 2019. It's huge. Huge.
It is huge, and I want you to get to your speakers, but I will feed off of that because we're talking about it. Dennis Yu talked about it a lot. All he kept saying was he has a methodology that's $1 a day, spend $1 a day, and use video with your Facebook ads. So he was all about video and the remarketing of those videos, which is something that I've been talking to you about that we do all the time, and it works. It's fantastic. So he talked that all about video with your ads too.
I think that's an important piece. I think that's totally important and totally relevant. So we didn't have anybody talk about video at our event aside from like a mention here and a mention there.
Okay.
But our event wasn't geared for just social media.
No, different.
Right. So I had my buddy Jeff Clatterbaugh, who's a John Maxwell certified advisor, get up and talk about leadership and developing the leader with you. In you. And that was a really good talk and a lot of stuff. John Maxwell, clearly the thought leader on leadership these days. So that was neat. Cedric McSween is a business growth coach, and he's a speaker, and he does all kinds of events. And so he got up and talked about the sales process, and he kicked off the event. And it always trips me out to be around Cedric, because Cedric's one of those cats that has more energy than I do. Right? He's like, he walks in a room and he owns the room faster than I can. And he's just not loud and verbose and grandiosing, but he's just cool and an easygoing fella. And it's just like bigger than life. And it's always an interesting piece for him. Gentleman named Chris Paul with HR Pro or Benny Pro, or now the Pro Group as it's known. It just changed in the last week or so. He came up and talked about corporate culture and talked about how to make sure that you have the right people in the right seats on the bus and really developing that team. And I thought that was such an important talk. Chris also sponsored the event by helping us get the location that we were at Automation Alley. So big fan of Chris Paul, and hat tip to you, sir. One of the coolest talks in my mind was a lady named Haley Zurich. Haley is an improv expert who's been teaching improv for years. So she taught us how to use improv and the skills involved in improv for business development, and how to just always move the conversation forward in a positive and productive way using those improv skills. And it was so fun because she made us get up and get out of our comfort zone and do stuff. And, and she's like, listen, yes, you look like a dork, but look around you in the circle. You all look like dorks, so don't worry about it. So it was great, man. And it was fun. And she owned the day. She absolutely
really neat.
Yeah, so she was cool. And then Jeff Sapancic, who runs a company called Profit Through Your Book, which is now more just like Profit Through Your Purpose, really talked about the idea of telling your story, really to engage people, and just how unique each one of us are, and how that really allows people to align with us. And it was a really excellent talk. And Jeff's one of the most insightful and intuitive coaches, for lack of a better term, I've ever met. I'm always happy to be in his presence because I learned so much about just staying focused and aligned with what's going on. He does a great job. And then I ended the day and I was talking about the Successes in Your Face program. And program's a weird word. I don't know why I said that, but Successes in Your Face, where we talk about focus, awareness, communications, and execution.
Could be a program.
It could be a program. It's actually, I'm pitching it as a program.
Okay, there you go.
That's why it could be a program. And I had a blast. I had just so much fun putting that talk together. And when I finished it off, I was like, listen, thank you for being here. I really, as I was putting this together, I realized this was just a gigantic note to self presentation. And so I'm glad that you were here, and I hope you managed to find some value in it too, because I know I will if I ever sit down and listen to it again.
Well, you should, because listening to yourself is you can learn from that too, just alone.
We teach what we most need to learn, Janet E. Johnson.
You got it. You got it.
So it was cool. It was cool. So your panel, what was your panel about? What did y'all talk about?
That one was how do brands connect with in social media. So that it was actually, how brands are connecting with customers on social media. So we discussed a lot of different samples. Southwest Airlines was one sample that Joanne Funch had brought up. Looking at across the board, I had talked about Legos and McDonald's, just how intuitive they paid attention. They respond to TNT Joel all the time, and it's interesting, but paying attention too,
Right.
like
Absolutely.
big brands are paying attention. Why aren't the little guys,
Well, it's budget, maybe time, but there's so many good tools.
There's tools. That's what I was going to say.
So many tools
To pay attention and monitor and that, and so those were talked about too, and contests and how to talk to the audience if you have a serious product, if you're serious, and can you bring humor to it? And then I brought up the Squatty Potty video campaign during that, because it's a very serious product that's very hard to demonstrate in a funny manner, but they figured out a way to do it.
Or it's the easiest thing to talk about since sliced bread in a funny manner, because turns out, like the book said, everybody poops.
Exactly. There was a big discussion about all sorts of, brands and different things. And then there were just a wide array of questions that came from the audience also. That's how we ended the day. Then there was one more keynote at the very, very end, and they were talking, and that was actually really good. I need to mention that because it was all about reviews and testimonials.
Ah, yes.
And it talked about how the reviews, Aaron Weich, Weiche, not sure how to pronounce his name, customer content marketing, reviews, testimonials, and your online reputation. And he kept talking about, putting testimonials on your website, using those testimonials, you should have a place for customer service. And then he had this one example of Arby's and how he wanted to give them feedback. They had on the back, $1,000 you could win. He said it took him longer than going in the place and having dinner to fill out that entire, form. He's like, and it was all about them instead of being all about the customer. A lot of cool things, but you need to manage he has a great program that helps you manage your online reviews and that kind of thing, because it is very important. The Amazon reviews, think about it. If there's 100 reviews, and what are we looking at? I've looked at the negatives. Sometimes you go to the negatives first, and if there's one or two, okay, that's just a disgruntled customer. But if it's an ongoing thread of negative, then you go, it's probably a product flaw, So there's a lot of things that you could do to help change that. So his was really great at the very end, and that's a little more broad, not specific to social media, but just your online presence.
Well, and I got to tell you, I think that's such an important element, because there's nothing more important than a positive third-party review, right? And a testimonial. Yes. Because the reality is, if you stand here and tell us how great you are at social media management or Facebook ads, it's a sales pitch. But if your customer says what a great job you did, especially if that customer is known, liked, and trusted by another prospect, it becomes the truth.
Exactly.
It is amazing. We're going to have a guy named Ian Pruckner on the show at some point. And Ian is a national sales director, which is the highest level at Primerica, which is a big insurance company. And Ian just did some amazing accomplishments. He was the single fastest person to reach $1 million per year in income in this company in the history of the almost 40 years of this company. And Ian wrote a kind of a testimonial about me on his Facebook page. And from that testimonial, I think I got 100 new Facebook friends, which I didn't necessarily want, but okay, now I have a bunch of new friends. I had at least 80 requests to be able to provide the same level of service to them that he got, and a bunch of new LinkedIn friends as well. It's utterly amazing.
But see, you should have gone one step further.
Yeah.
Taken that and had it as a quote, a testimonial quote on your website. And you probably still could. But having that on your website, because that's a key piece too, is just, that's where people are looking and having that there. I have a testimonial on every page of my website.
I think I have a testimonial on most pages, and then I have an actual page on my website that is just testimonials. So I have that.
Yeah, I got rid of the page because I cleaned it up. But I have it on every. So, and that's what everybody should be doing.
And that's what people should be doing, right? Let
that's
other
a whole
people
website.
Speak for you.
Yeah, that's a whole website one. But that's it was mentioned. Have places on your website for this time.
That's cool. And that would be a really interesting discussion too. How to get them, why it's important, where to put them. Power of video testimonial versus just written testimonial. So that's another future show. I think all in all, I was really excited about our event and how it went and how it was received. And, we were talking about maybe doing them annually, but I think we're going to end up talking about doing it in the first quarter of next year. So we're gonna push that up quite a bit. So
maybe every 6 months, you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
And maybe possibly quarterly and moving it around and going to different locations, right? And you can build some traction that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's conceptually the idea of business growth strategy and tactics without all the sales pitch, right? No fluff, hardcore action. I think people resonate with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's that, and we didn't have much selling either at our event. I mean, Nick had a program he mentioned and talked about it. He had a great presentation, but then he spun that in. Okay. And, we're all allowed to do that because we didn't as a panel, obviously, but I'm just saying you were allowed to put that in if you wanted to, because you know what, you're doing that for free. The speakers were free.
Sure.
Of course, that makes that kind of changes it up. But
it had to be with that nice glossy brochure.
Oh yeah. You got to look at my Facebook profile too. All my Rockstar pictures, all dressed up with glasses and crazy stuff. Yeah, we definitely. It's a fun event, and I think that spins off to we were just talking about live events, how important they are for networking purposes, for connecting with others, and for learning. Like I had a lot of key takeaways. You had a lot of key takeaways, and you connected with people maybe you would never have before, I'm sure.
I met new folks.
Absolutely. New people.
Absolutely. And I was the host and I met new folks. So
Exactly. So I think the events are great, and I think putting on events are great. I do think some people, I have avoided it because one of the things we've talked about, and it's interesting because Sarah talked about this too, is 80% of the people are last minute. I mean, a lot of people are last minute. They don't want to commit early on. And that's what makes events hard, because you don't know exactly how many are going to show up. So I do think we should end on this note that we should have Sarah on our show talking about, because she did 4 years of this. And I think, sponsoring event, it's a hard job, but she does a fantastic job with it. And there you go. You can learn from it.
Let's do it. And to your point, 20% of our ticket sales sold within the last 24 hours.
See, exactly.
Right? And it's like, really? And that include the few people that walked up and bought at the door. It just, sure. It's like, I want to go to this as long as I don't have anything better to do. I don't know what the mentality is.
Yeah. Well, they think, people are busy and they don't want to necessarily make the commitment. Look at my commitment. I'm losing out on a lot of money next month because the date that the one event that I signed up for is on the date I was asked to do, a paid presentation. So, sometimes you kind of go, but you know what? I feel events are worth it enough to give that up. I think people should go just definitely learn from, if you learned anything today, take action, attend an event near you, fly to one, it depends on the size that you want to do and, the money you want to pay. But if there's peers you want to connect with, find where they are and go to an event and figure out a way to connect with them. I'm not shy at all, so I go say hi to everybody that I want to.
Well, that's it.
People are a little more, if you go to these events, go out of your way to say hi to people and introduce yourself.
Growth happens just outside of your comfort zone. So if it's a little bit uncomfortable for you to go up and say hello to somebody, then it's a growth opportunity. Trust us. It's really, really important. And people are always much easier to approach. I mean, Daniel Yu was the gentleman's name. Is it David Yu?
Yep.
Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a D word. Right? I mean, you
we're
might
at
be able to tweet with them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But aside from that, there was no way you were going to have an hour with him otherwise. So, because people are in a whole different frame of mind, they're much more approachable. I think events are important. We talk about the idea of sharpening the saw, right?
Yes.
How do you get better at your job? And it's reading, it's watching videos, it's doing tutorials, it's taking training, and events allow you to do almost all of that simultaneously. So pick the one that's going to allow you to grow in your business and go check it out for sure.
I agree.
And there's always an event happening somewhere near you. All right. So where do these people find us again, Janet E. Johnson?
BusinessGrowthTime.com. We have all of our past shows. We just did quite a few really good interviews, and we have some more coming up. So check it out and go through the slew of show number 61, I think, is this show. 62.
Somewhere. Yeah, it's in
we're
in the low 60s now.
Yeah, we're getting there. So we've had a lot of guests over the years. So check it out, businessgrowthtime.com, or if you're an iTunes user, businessgrowthtime.com/iTunes, and then also find us on Facebook. And we have an interactive group there. And because it's a group, I'm not going to give you a link. I'm just going to give you what to do. Search inside Facebook, Business Growth Time, and you'll see it. And just request to join. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you got some nuggets out of what we talked about.
Awesome. Thank you. See y'all real soon.